The Defence Strategic Review. I'll have expert analysis in a moment and I'll get Pauline Hanson's response as well. But let me just pick up on a couple of points that should be deeply worrying. Because this is an important document. It should be hard-nosed and clear. Our defence posture is no place for virtue signalling and woke nonsense. But yes, you guessed it, this document includes a section on climate change, declaring it as a national security issue. If climate change accelerates over the coming decades, it says, it has the potential to significantly increase risks in our region. Well, yes, you have to have contingencies, don't you? But there have been warnings like this for decades, and neither the climate nor the nations declared to be under threat from it seem to be doing what these warnings have predicted. But this stuff is like holy writ for Labor.
We have been seeing more and more climate-based natural disasters, flood and fire. We've been seeing a much greater call on the ADF's resources.
But the claims of unprecedented challenges and increasing disasters don't stack up. We've shown you that time and again, as you know. So this climate alarmism is pretty pointless, except that it does give the Defence Strategic Review a good excuse to push back at being seen as some sort of natural disaster and COVID responder. The review says that this is not its actual job. Effectively, Defence isn't structured or equipped to act as a domestic disaster recovery agency, along with its core function, in any sustainable way. And cop this, the Albanese Labor government seems to fully agree.
We need to make sure that the objective here, or the idea, was always that the ADF be the last call to be made, not the first.
The last call to be made, hey? That's a kind of interesting call from the Labor Deputy Prime Minister. Don't put too much pressure on the Defence Forces, he says, to help in natural disasters. It's very interesting if you've got a memory longer than a goldfish's, because a year ago, when Labor was in opposition, they repeatedly accused the coalition and the former Prime Minister Scott Morrison of being too slow to call out the army.
Well, I think it's the government as a whole, the Prime Minister, the Defence Minister should have responded quicker. I mean, everyone who was watching their television screens during the course of these terrible events knew that this was unprecedented and needed immediate action. And I have to say the ADF, those that are involved, are doing remarkable things along with the volunteers and the emergency workers. But more should have been done earlier, and more ADF personnel deployed quicker to help the communities of northern New South Wales, southeast Queensland. We would work, of course, directly with the ADF, the CDF of the Defence Force, but if you are clear and you have the political will, those things happen. And they don't happen, or they're less likely to happen, David, if you don't see a Prime Minister act quickly enough. And we've seen time and time again,
so Defence
the Prime Minister failed to act on national disasters.
How the worm turns, hey? Now they want to leave the choppers in the hangars. Oh, and one other thing. The Defence Strategic Review says this about climate change. Australia has the potential to benefit substantially from global decarbonisation if we can harness our renewable and mineral resources and drive investment in clean technology supply chains and energy-intensive industry. Defence also needs to focus on clean energy transition. Well, really? The potential to benefit substantially from this stuff? We also have the potential to harm ourselves terribly, as we already have. We have made ourselves energy poor and more dependent on foreign sources of technology. We have less energy security right now than we had a decade ago. How does that logic not make it into the Defence Review instead of that climate change policy propaganda? And as for Defence itself having to focus on the clean energy transition, really? We are talking about the defence of our nation here, not virtue signalling. Why even say this? Get back to us when you're running electric tanks and electric bushmasters, and when you're prepared to have solar-powered warships or electric helicopters. This is nonsensical. Please focus on what matters, defending the nation, not ticking boxes on climate change posturing. Be afraid, Australia, be very afraid. Many of our enemies are within.